Hi, I'm McKenna Crooks. I will be playing Joseph or Joe Eldridge's special education teacher and also his case manager.
Hi, I'm Amy Allen and I'm going to be playing the LEA representative and the principal of the school.
My name is Chloe Ford and I will be playing Joe's general education teacher, and in this case I am his English teacher.
Hi, I'm Emily Price and I will be playing Joe's mother.
And I'm Hayden Butterfield, and I will be the school district psychologist.
First of all, I would like to begin by thanking everyone for coming here. And we are all here with one purpose in mind, and that is to help support Joe Eldridge. Before we begin, looking at the legal documentation, we need everyone to sign in to indicate that they were present. This isn't an indication of like, I agree with everything that's on this form. Hopefully we will come to that conclusion, but it's just it's an attendance sheet. So if everyone could please sign, that would be great. Mrs. Allen?
Thank you.
And Mrs. Eldridge, we already gave you a booklet detailing your rights as a parent. That's the procedural safeguards notice. And in case you haven't had another copy of that, let me just give that to you now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, snacks are available. We have apple slices, apple fritters, apple juice, and oranges. So please help yourself. Don't be shy. So first, let's talk about Joe's strengths. What do you see as Joe's strengths as his mother, Mrs. Eldridge?
Well, my son loves his sports. He loves getting outside, getting active. He loves working in shop class. You know, he loves working with his hands and being active.
Yeah, we definitely agree. He is a very active young man. He has a good sense of humor.
And we really enjoy having Joseph on our school teams. He is an amazing athlete and he starts in 3 sports, and we are just really glad to have him on the team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in my English class on the days where we decide to act things out, he gets so into it and he loves it. He can't get enough of it. He's a joy to have. He makes everybody laugh. And watching him talk about his sports it's phenomenal to see how passionate he is. He's a truly wonderful student to have.
And just like everyone has said, he's a super smart kid. He knows what he wants to learn, and he loves learning when he is able to do that. And I think it's really great for him that he is so passionate about his sports and, you know, working with his hands and getting things done. I think that's very respectable.
So Mrs. Eldridge, we are very lucky to have your son here at our school, and we are so thankful for him. However, we do believe that there are some struggles that he has that he hasn't really overcome, and we feel that these struggles need to be addressed. We feel that there's both an academic struggle and then there's a bit of a behavioral struggle. First, let's talk about like the academic struggle. How would you describe that, Mrs. Honey?
Yeah, definitely. Ever since I've noticed Joe's been struggling with some auditory things in class, I've been paying a little more attention to what's been going on with him and why he might be struggling. And I've definitely noticed that it's auditory is where the problem is coming from. When we're reading stories aloud in class, he finds it hard to take that information in, synthesize it, and come up with a conclusion as to what we were just talking about. So we would read a story at the 8th grade level in class aloud, and when I would ask him questions about the story, he only gets about 1 in 9 correct.
Oh.
And I know that seems shocking, and it no way does it talk about his intelligence level, because he's so very smart. And when he's reading the story, he can do the comprehension questions better, but it's when it's read out loud to him, he doesn't seem to take in the information like he should. And so throughout this meeting, we want to come up with a way for him to better that, the auditory part of his learning. As well as that, he does have some outbursts in class. we've noticed that about 4 out of 5 days of the week he will have outbursts that are just unprovoked. Even if it's just like, hey man, did you hear about the Packers game last week? I mean, it's something he's passionate about, something he's excited about, but we want to control that in that environment so that when he's there to learn, he can just keep that learning going steady. As well as that he is not always prepared in class. And I mean, he's in 8th grade, it happens. Being unorganized can be part of a teenager's life. But we want to make him more prepared so that when he does go up to high school and even in his sports, he's more organized. So that's what we're going to go through today so that we can hopefully get all of that worked out so that in the run here we can get him right back on track.
So we're just having this meeting because he's having trouble with listening and acting out, or what exactly is the reason we're having this meeting?
So he has a hard time processing information when it's given to him orally, and that's a skill that he'll need later on in life. Would you agree?
Yes, I definitely believe it. Yeah, I guess.
And I think it goes to say that, we take these assessments district-wide, and every school takes them, one of them being the Woodcock-Johnson assessment, which is basically a standardized intelligence test. And his scores on that, he got, for reading fluency, was about 80 out of 100. His story recall was 75 out of 100. And, he also took a learning styles assessment, and that showed us what he did best in, the way he learns. So his haptic or hands-on learning, kind of kinesthetic learning, came out to an attention span of 25 minutes, which is great. So he's able to focus for that long when he's working with his hands, taking notes or doing folding paper, just something keeping his hands busy. His visual attention span was 10 minutes, but his auditory or listening attention span came only to 3 minutes. And so this is something we want to address and be able to give him the tools he needs, because his test scores show, that he does know the information. We just have to figure out a way to get him at that same level, no matter how the information is presented to him. We want him to be the best he can in any classroom situation, whether it's lecture or a project or anything. We want him to be able to do well there. So.
Okay. So clearly, your son is very, very intelligent. He just hasn't been able to process the information correctly in his mind, so that way he can show how smart he really is. And also, Mrs. Allen has something to talk about as far as his behavior goes.
So as Ms. Moore mentioned, occasionally Joseph has unprovoked outbursts in class, and it's not only in English, but he has class outbursts throughout the day, and we've been noticing them about 4 out of 5 days a week. Joe is an awesome kid, and he's a great athlete and stuff like that. But we also need to make sure that our top priority is for Joseph and for the other students and the staff to be safe. That is the absolute top priority. And so we just want to make sure that we can address that behavior. And because, no kid wants to be in trouble. And him having to leave class because he's being disruptive and things like that, and have to come see me and get a discipline referral, it's no fun. And he's missing learning opportunities while he has to come down and see me and things like that. So we just want to make sure that we curb that behavior and we can find a way for Joseph to be more productive in class.
Can you explain to Mrs. Eldridge the RTI process?
So the RTI process is response to intervention, and it's a school policy we have that has 3 tiers. And so when a regular ed teacher feels that a student isn't reaching the full potential they could, they start this process, and then the student goes through the 3 tiers. In the first tier, if not a lot of educational progress is made, then they continue down to the second tier. And so Joseph received about 20 weeks of RTI, and he didn't make as much academic progress as we would have liked. So that's why we're here doing the IEP, because we want to make sure that he has all the support that he needs to be able to be the best person he can be.
So him not fulfilling that RTI, is it because he has a disability of some sort, or what has been?
That's a good question. So in conclusion, we feel that your son has a bit of a learning disability. He's not able to process the information like we would like him to when it's presented to him orally. And then an emotional disability. He doesn't know how to handle disappointment. He doesn't know how to handle particularly stressful or disappointing situations. And so he acts out and makes it bigger than it needs to be. And so we just, we feel that he needs further support from us and that we can do more to help your son.
Okay.
You know, and I think disability is a scary word, but, you know, it's nothing severe. We don't think that, you know, he's having any exceptional problems. We just want to be able to create an environment for him to be able to facilitate his learning.
Okay.
So we'll continue on to the second page. As you look at the consideration of special factors, Mrs. Aldrich, we said no to all of those statements except for the first one. Ms. Honey, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I had mentioned earlier, sometimes in class, when Joe does have these outbursts, he will yell across the class at his friends, or, you know, he'll provoke loud situations, and that does impede on his learning and his peers' learning. And I think that looking at this, we said no to everything else, but the fact that he is interrupting other students and disrupting his own work is something that we need to look into, so that we can create a better environment, not only for him, but his peers in the classroom as well.
Okay. Would you agree with all of those statements?
I would. I looked it over earlier, and I think that what we've decided is correct.
Okay, good. And then the extended school year. Mrs. Aldrich, we feel that your son might benefit from an extended school year. And which, the extended school year is pretty much summer school, where your son goes to school during the summer. And we feel that that would help him bridge over things that he may forget during the year before. It would help him to practice his listening skills, so that way come 9th grade he's ready to go.
From what I've heard from previous teachers, he doesn't seem to have an issue once he goes back to school. And I did sign him up for 3 sports camps this summer, and they're the expensive ones, which are non-refundable. So I just don't think that that's going to be an option for us in summer school. I don't think that's an option.
Well, and Joseph doesn't strike me as a child who needs this. This is normally for kids who lose so much learning content during the summer that they come back not as prepared as the other students. And I don't think that any of Joseph's teachers have made observations of that actually happening. So I think we can definitely not do the extended school year.
I'm on board with not doing it as well, as one of his teachers.
Okay, so let's not do school year. Pages 3 and 4. We don't really need to talk about those because your son is younger than 16.
Okay.
So let's talk about the goals for Joe. So once again, there's 2 concerns that we have. There's an educational concern and there's an emotional concern. And so, Mrs. Aldrich, let's have Miss Honey talk about Joe's baseline in his educational progress.
So flat out on the table, where we have Joe right now is we are currently looking at 8th grade auditory material, stories, short stories, poems, things like that that may be read to him out loud, in my class at least. Other classes is different subject matter. And when we're reading those stories out loud and he's listening to them, he's only getting, like I said earlier, the 1 out of 9 questions correct. So that's where he's sitting at right now. That's the baseline, but we want to create a goal that will be better for him. It will create his knowledge to be stronger and his auditory skills to be stronger as well.
Okay. So, a goal that we have for Joe. I propose that by the end of the school year that Joe answers 8 out of 9 questions correctly at an 8th grade reading level.
By the end of the school year?
Mhm.
Well, this being April, that would only give him about a month to go from 1 out of 9 comprehension questions to 8. Are you sure that you would be able to assist him through that much?
I can help him as much as he's willing. And I think that your son he's a competitor, you know, and you really see that out on the field. I think that your son really could do that.
I mean, yes, I definitely agree that he's a very competitive guy, and I think that whatever goal we put in front of him, he will definitely try to reach with his whole heart. I do. But I think asking 8 out of 9 questions to be correct in a month or so is a little bit much to ask. Since an IEP does go for a period of a year, we're going to make that goal for maybe April of next year. And in that time, I think it would be smart to ask him to maybe get 6 out of 9 questions on that 9th grade level correctly. We're upping the level because he will be in 9th grade. And 6 out of 9, I think, it's a passing grade. I think it's a good spot for him to be in, as opposed to asking too much out of him and potentially him letting himself down if he doesn't reach that.
I mean, my son is very sensitive. He won't let anybody know that because he's a football player. But he does get down on himself when he can't achieve something. And not that I don't think my son can be perfect, but I'm a bit of a realist. And I understand that that's not always attainable. So I would have to agree with Miss Honey's goal of going to 6 out of 9 on a 9th grade level, just because that way he won't get down on himself and he won't, fall further behind by trying to reach this unattainable goal.
And I think that will set him on a steady trajectory to be able to make that progress over time. Because, if he gets overwhelmed, then he won't perform as well. And that'll just make his mental state worse, which will have an effect on not only his grades, but then he might become ineligible to participate in sports. And, that will just put him in a bad state of mind. So we want to set this trajectory very reachable, and so he can have something to work over time.
Okay, all those things considered, I think you're right. I think that the goal that I had originally set probably needs to be adjusted. So April of next year, how about April 19th, a year from now, at the next official IEP meeting? Our goal is for Joe to answer 6 out of 9 questions correctly. Yeah?
Yeah, on the 9th grade level.
At the 9th grade level. So
Yes.
that would give him time to, to finish up 8th grade material, to master that, and then to move on to 9th grade.
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that.
All right. Mrs. Allen, we should have intermittent meetings to check up on Joe's progress in between. So what dates do you propose for that?
Well, obviously we'd have a meeting in April so that we could make sure that the goals that we have set annually, we can take care of those. But let's set a tentative date in October and maybe in January, and so that way we can just have observational points for those goals, and we can adjust if necessary.
Okay. So 4th of October and 5th of January?
For now, that should work. I'll check on my nail appointments, but.
And the best part about having those goals is that if he does improve by October, then we can all meet again and create new goals if
Okay.
he's already reached those goals at that point. So there's always room for more improvement.
Let's talk about the second goal for Joe. Currently, Mrs. Allen, once again, what is the baseline for Joe's behavior?
So as we've discussed previously, we see Joseph in unprovoked outbursts about 4 or 5 days a week. And so for our goal by next year, we want to have Joseph exhibiting that kind of behavior only once a week or less. And we feel like that would allow Joseph to have, everybody gets angry, And so, and everybody talks out in the middle of class sometimes. And so we want to have that safety net there, but we also want him to be productive in class. And because our top priority here is to make sure that Joseph, all of the other students, and all of our staff members are completely safe within our school.
So I understand that my son has these tantrums, and I know that he's an active teenager and he tends to get into trouble a lot. But what exactly do y'all have in mind to help him go from 4 a week to down to 1 or less a week? That seems a bit drastic. I mean, it is over a year, but what do you think will work for him to get those down?
That's an excellent question and a legitimate concern. We will talk about that later on in the paperwork, but we can assure you that we really believe that we have the skills and strategies needed to help your son accomplish this goal. A big role will be Dr. Butterfield.
Okay.
Okay, so I propose that as a goal, like Mrs. Allen said, that Joe will have only 1 temper tantrum a week or less by April 19th of 2017.
Okay. And then we'll have those meetings in the middle and checkups in the middle as well.
So now we're getting closer to the part that you're a little bit concerned about. Pages 6 and 9 talk about the plan of action for your son, how we're going to get to that goal. First, we're going to talk about the educational goal, and then we're going to talk about the behavioral goal.
Okay.
So as far as the educational goal is concerned, I can help your son with his listening skills. He would spend about 30 minutes with me every day at the beginning of class, and we would practice listening to tapes and then having him, we'll quiz him on what he hears, and we'll see that what is in his mind that's not quite connecting, and then we'll try to therapeutically bridge over that, so that way he's more comfortable in listening situations.
Okay.
And it's likely that we'll probably pair it with visual material too, so that way he can connect the visual with the auditory, and that way his brain can build bridges over that gap.
Okay.
So I propose that Joe spends half an hour with me 5 times a week in the study skills classroom, and I propose that this starts happening tomorrow.
So the way our schedule works here at the school, I'm sure you're familiar, but we have 8 periods a day. And so those 4 core classes, and then of course Joe really likes shop and PE, so we allow him to have those 2. And so he has 2 other electives that he could have. And so we're proposing that one of those electives he spends with Mrs. Crooks in the study skills classroom, and he takes care of these issues and works towards his goals.
Okay, I think that'll be good for him to not be taken out of class. He does not have attention drawn to him, especially when it's about the things that he's not very confident on. So I think that having it daily, but as a class, will work best for him. So I agree with that.
And in this situation, he can spend the time on whatever he needs to, be it subject matter from English or science or wherever he may need the extra help that week. And this will be just a time for him to get help. It won't be, he won't get extra homework to be graded on. It won't be a stressful situation. It'll just be an area for him to be able to really tackle those skills and get them in control.
Okay. Does that sound acceptable?
I think it does.
Next, let's talk about the related services. So this is going to address how we're going to accomplish the behavioral goal.
Okay.
Once again, what do we want to see in Joe?
So as we said, the goal is 1 temper tantrum a week or less. And so in order to do that, we are going to set up psychological services through Dr. Butterfield. Dr. Butterfield, do you have a preference of how many days or?
So in an ideal world, I'd like to see Joe as much as possible. Be it every day for an hour or 2 hours, whatever works best into the schedule. And he can come in before school or after school or during lunch or during his extra free period that he has. Just whatever works best for you guys. That way he can come into my office and we can sit and talk. We can talk about sports or school or anything that's going on in his life that he wants to talk about that can alleviate some of that stress so that he can better focus in the classroom. So I would like to meet with him, like I said, as much as possible, but I would like to leave it up to your schedule to see what we can work around here.
Well, after school doesn't work because he has all of his sports activities then. I think before school might be best for him. Strangely, he's a very active morning person.
Okay,
So
great.
I think that would work. He just has one sport Monday and Wednesdays in the mornings. So I think only 2 times a week should be good for him for about an hour. I just don't think that Monday and Wednesdays would work for that.
Okay, great. So I think if we go Tuesdays and Thursdays before school, and if we just go an hour before school, and since that'll be first thing in the morning, when he comes in, I can have muffins or donuts or something. He can lay on the couch and get extra rest that he might need or anything. Or, just be able to, I'll be there to create an environment for him to be able to, again, alleviate some of that stress and just create a place for him to have a friend.
Okay. And the school will cover the cost of his meeting with the doctor?
Yeah. So for those twice a week, that should be manageable.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the supplementary aids and services. Ms. Honey, what do you propose for supplementary?
Okay, so I think in the classroom, I do a lot of auditory teaching. I think if I project things on the board, if I write things on a whiteboard, handouts, things like that, and it's not going to be just for Joe. And since I know that his image is very important to him, I want to make sure he feels comfortable in the class with these extra things. And I think personally all my students will benefit from it. So when I am teaching a lesson, I will have videos on the board, I will have pictures on the board of everything that I'm talking over so that he's connecting the visual and the auditory together. Since the visual is where he thrives and the auditory where he's not so strong, this way if we're combining them together, he'll be able to synthesize that information a lot better. And so I think that's the plan for him, and not only in just my class, but we'll make sure through our principal here that every class is doing that with him.
Okay. Additionally, your son will be allowed to stand up at the back of the classroom. It's something that I did in college. And can you talk about his locker?
Okay, so school policy is that a locker is a privilege, and so since Joe has sometimes problems remembering to bring his materials to class, we were proposing that a notebook be used to communicate from his teachers to you and stuff like that. And once he learns how to manage a smaller space like his backpack in a single notebook, that he can have that privilege of the locker back. And so we just want to make sure that, he's not losing stuff in the transition between home and school. And so the locker, we feel like, is just another place that he can lose stuff. So we're just proposing that once he manages the smaller space of his backpack and remembers to bring his notebook back and forth, then we'll allow him to have a locker again.
Okay, I think that could be manageable for him.
So in summary, you would need to get a notebook for your son that has enough pages for all of his courses.
Okay.
His backpack is going to accommodate all of his classes and everything that he needs. And then to accommodate him, to help him focus in class, he will be allowed to stand up.
Okay.
And stand up.
And through the notebook, not only will it be a way to get him in the habit of coming prepared to class, but it'll also encourage him to take notes and stuff, because the teacher and you will have to sign off and ensure that he is doing the work, not just bringing the things he needs.
Okay. As far as program modifications and supports go, we feel that these are not needed.
Okay.
Next, let's talk about the least restrictive environments. The question is are we putting your son in the most normal situations possible? That's the least restrictive environment.
Okay.
We feel that keeping him in the classroom for the entire school day, except for just one short period where he's in a different class, working on study skills and listening skills, we feel that this is the best situation for him. He has not been able to keep up with schoolwork in a regular classroom, and so working on these skills, we feel is justification for pulling him for that 30-minute period 5 times a week.
Okay.
Do you feel that's acceptable?
I think that would be best for him. He's still involved with his peers continually, which I think is good, and getting that extra help will definitely help him reach those goals that we've set, so.
Looking at these statements, beginning with the educational placement is based on the student's IEP. Looking over those statements, Mrs. Aldridge, do you agree with all those statements?
As I looked over it, I believe that they are all correct. I'll just check the first 2 real fast, just so that that's what we went over, and I was a little bit unsure about those, so.
Okay. Participation in state and district-wide assessments. We are all in agreement that Joe is perfectly capable of participating in a normal standardized test.
Okay.
They are all handwritten tests, so he's not going to be having to synthesize anything auditory, and so that's why he should be able to take them just like normal.
Okay.
Does anybody have any last thoughts or concerns that we need to write out and attach with this document?
I don't believe I have any.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for coming here, and I feel that this was a productive meeting. I look forward to working with Joe and seeing him just grow and flourish. I think he'll be a lot happier. Thank you.